Boker Tov. Boker Tov. Shavua Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yud Ches in Sota, as we learn for the Ilu Neshama, the yard site today of Yosef ben Yaakov. And we also learned today for a Refuah Shlema for Akiva ben Chai Rachel. Does the Gemara 5 lines down on Daf Yud Ches Amel. Boy Rava. Custom based Megillah. So yesterday's Mishnah talked about how you write the Megillah, what words are put into the Megillah, right? What words are put into the Megillah, and as well as that it has to be written on a proper parchment, a parchment that can be erased, regular parchment that you use to write Sefer Torah, etc. So boy Rava, Kosav Beis Megillas, the shtei sotas. Let's say these are theoretical questions. Let's say you had 2 sotas at the same time, and each one had a Megillah written for her. And then, but you used 1 cup of water. Remember the water that had to be taken from the kior, or some say from the kior, from the under the tile there on the right side when you come into the Mishkan. And they take that water, and then they take, the water came from the kior, but then they take the dirt from the area under the tile. The water came from the kior, and then they take dirt from under the tile, and they mix that up. And they had 1 cup of water, but you used you put 2 Megillas, 1 for each woman. You had woman A and woman B, and you put it, is that okay? Ksiva is the main thing that has to be written for the woman. It just says law, that just like he says by Nasan law get. We learn that law always means lishma. Here also, because it says also law, so it was written, each Megillah was written properly for an individual woman, 1 for A, 1 for B, each lishma. But you have that. Oh, Dilma being a mechika lishma. You need mechika lishma. Now you're putting them both into 1 cup. So it's not like you could say that they're both obliterated and the water is one thing. You don't have lishma because you have 2 different women over here individually. It's like you can't write, again, let's say 2 people are getting divorced. You can't have 1 document for 2 different women. If you say, no, it's got to be, the water has to be, the cloth, the star that you write, the Megillah has to be blotted out individually. Each one, this one is for A, this one's for B, not mix them up. Okay, let's say then you followed up and each Megillah was put into an individual cup of water, and then you mix the 2 cups together, and you're going to have them both drink basically from 1 cup. Is it simply enough to have mechik lishma after the ksiv lishma, after you wrote lishma individually and you blotted out individually? You've done that. Is that good enough for Ika? Odilma, how love the dakashasa, how love the dakashasa. Each one is not drinking their own. You might even say, how is one allowed to, how is one even allowed to drink somebody else's? After all, this is holy water. So, it's specifically for her. I could even attempt that. You can't drink somebody else's. What happens after you mixed up the 2? You re-separate again, like at a Sheva Brachas, with the thing. After you mix up the 2 cups of water, you separated them again, and then you give 1 to A, 1 to B. What do you say now? Yesh Breira. Could you say that each one got their own, which is a hard thing to understand over here? Oh, ain't there? Not take all these questions stand. That's not the way to do things. Boy, Rava, Hishka Basiv Mao, what happens if she drank, she didn't drink in a cup in the normal way you drink?
I understand these issues by a get. Mm-hmm. And by a get, I assume the issues are because you have to be very careful. You have the right person, the right.
No, but it has to be written lishma. Even if in other words, it's not even if you have the right person, but the star was not written lishma. So good. If you had you ever go into these stores where they have little tags, they have names Annie, Tracy. Rachel, whatever, right? And you take that little tag and you give that for the right person because they didn't make it when they produced that tag. They didn't make it for that individual. You have a daughter whose name is Tracy, so you bought her a Tracy. Same thing if you had a star. Let's say a sofer. He's got some free time, so he writes a million different gittin, every possible name that you could think of, right? Ruvain, Chanamushka, right? Yeah, if he was in Crown Heights, so he would have written, Chaim Mushka, all those different names. You can't use that. It's got to be written for this particular person in mind. Here too, you have to write this Megillah that you write with all the phrases. You have to write it for this individual woman from this man. That's the idea. Because says law lishma, not because of a svar, not because of a svar. Of course, you're talking about the right person.
But again, by get.
Yeah.
Here we're talking about a relationship between this woman and God.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
not talking
yeah.
about
But it has to be
outsiders.
written. Yeah,
We're not
so
talking about husbands.
right. Well, it is about husband. Yeah,
In other words, who's gonna kill her?
yeah. That's right.
Right.
But
So you need
needless to
lishma?
say, yeah, because it says of cost of law lishma. That's exactly. Look at the fourth line in Rashi from the top of the page. Lishma lishma b'sefer la'atzmo. It's got to be written for her own sefer. The siva asola lishma. That's what it says in the pasuk of asola. You do all this.
In addition, it says asola.
That says asola because it's law lishma, just like by get the cost of law, the same thing. So, and we learn it the same thing by if you give a get to a shifcha or an eved, the same kind of thing. So that's the questions raised. So these questions stand. Boy, Rabbi Hishkim said, let's say she didn't drink in a normal fashion. Normal fashion is that you drink it the way Michael's drinking that cup. You take it up and you pick it up and you pick it up. Let's say she drank it from a straw or a tube, which Shvaferis is a tube, a sieve is a straw, Shvaferis is a tube mouth. Is that normal way to drink it? I mean, kids drink that way, or people who are very old drink that way. Oh, that's not the normal way to drink. Take that question stands too. Boy, Ravashi, Nishpul man. Let's say she didn't have the whole. After you did the water in the cup, some of it spilled out. Maybe you need it to be the complete cup. It's got to have all the water that was in there with the Megillah. After all, don't forget the letters on the Megillah were blotted out in the water. So maybe it's only good if the whole concoction's there. It's like you need the whole dose of medicine, so to speak, right? You can't have a half a dose. If they tell you to take 10 cc's, you can't take 6 cc's and expect to get okay. Here too, if some of it spilled out, or nishtairu mehen. Let's say she didn't drink it all up. You tell the kid, drink the whole thing up. You can't drink half. You can't take it because you got to take the whole thing out. Again, these questions stand. Amar Rav Zeir Amar Rav. Okay, so it doesn't say so. No, so we had before a machlokas about that. If you have to have a revius, right, according to one opinion, according to the other opinion, right, how much nikab, and we had a revius of water. The other opinion doesn't say how much. Just fill it doesn't say, but whatever amount they put in, everybody agrees it's got to be enough that that you could see it in there, right? That we said that you have to be able to see the dirt in the water. So it can't be that much water that it would cover up the whole thing. Or maybe that's only if you need a revius. Maybe mime shadam sipra nikam and come revius. That was by Metzora. We talked about that. Here it doesn't really say, right? We didn't have that by Metzora. We had that idea. You got to be able to see the dam in there. That how much it is. Here he doesn't really say. He just put I'm sorry. He did say chatzi log mine. He did say, but in the Mishnah it said back on Tesvav. Mishnah said chatzi log mine and akiyur. Rabbi Yehuda says revius. So it's a machlokas whether you need a revius or you need a kim. So there is a specific amount of water. If you look at the parsha of Sota, it says there in Perik Dalid of Bamidbar, Perik Dalid or Perik Hay. Let's see here. Perik Hay or is Perik Hay. In Pasuk Yud Tes it starts off Ishbia Osa Kohen. And then in Pasuk Chaval, two lines later, it says Vishbia Kohen es Isha Bishvua Sa'allah, with a shvua of a curse. Okay, so twice it says Vishbia. Now, why does it say twice Vishbia? So here, Amrav Zeir, Amrav. Beis shvuas, the two shvuas that it says here, Vishbia Kohen es Vishbia Sa Kohen, the Sota Lama, Achas Kodem Shimchem Gil. Once she swears before the Megillah was blotted out, because we try to get her to avoid blotting out Hashem's name, so we try to threaten her with this shvua that she has to swear to. And one after it's been blotted out already, we make a swear again. Says the Gemara, that's not the case. As I pointed out, these both psukim, pasuk Yud Tes and pasuk Chafal, are only two psukim removed from one another, and then only later in pasuk Chav Gimel does it says Umacha El Me'amara. Yeah, write these things in the sefer, and then you blot out the water. So both Yishbiyas, both in Yud Tes and Chaf Aleph, are both before the water blotted out the cloth, the Megillah. Masku Rava Tavayu Kodem Shemchem Megillah Ksivim. Elo Marava, listen. Achas shvua sheyesh imo, olav achas shvua she'ein imo. One is a shvua that she has to swear to. The Kohen makes her swear to it. One is that has a curse with it. One is without a curse. What do we mean by that? So first of all, look at the words. In Pasuk it says, you swear that you haven't done any of this, and then you're clean. And then in Chafalv it says, Allah. Here it says a shvuas Allah, swear her with a swear with a curse, a swear including a curse. Now, what do we mean by that? He says the first shvua doesn't have a curse. The second one has a curse. What is the example of a shvua that has a curse with it? I make you swear swear that you claim that you're innocent, swear that you have not misbehaved, swear that you haven't misbehaved. Because if you are tamei, this water is going to come in and destroy you. So the Gemara says, okay, that's not a shvua. The Allah is not with to get connected to the shvua. The shvua is that she hasn't misbehaved, and then he says, and by the way, she'im nitbis, because if you did become tamei, the water is going to hurt you, amarav, or kill you. Amarava Allah l'chuda kaima v'shvua l'chuda kaima. That's not a shvua that has an Allah with it. It says v'shvuas ha'Allah. There's a shvu over here, and there's a curse here. There's two separate things. The shvu is that she hasn't committed adultery. And the curse is that if she committed adultery, she's going to die. It's not a shvu of the Allah. There's two separate things. I make you swear. I make you swear that you agree that if you became tamei, you will be, this curse will happen to you and you will die. Amaravashi, that also doesn't work. That's not a shvua. When we say shvua, mean a shvua that she hasn't committed adultery. Here, according to the way you just described it, Rava's opinion is that you might just swear if you became tamei, you will die. Okay, so that you're swearing about the curse. You're not swearing that she didn't become tamei. Elam Ravashi, I'll give you what's an example of a shvua salah. I make you swear that you did not misbehave, you didn't commit adultery, and I make you swear that you understand. You swear that if you did misbehave, the water will come in and kill you. So that's the shvua. So the first shvua is a shvua that she hasn't misbehaved. The second shvua is a shvua that has Allah with it.
She says, I didn't do it.
Right.
I'm not going to take a shvua.
Right. And
you don't give
her the water, and she has to be, and she gets divorced with no ksubah. No ksubah, right? Because she refuses to drink or refuses to make the shvua. Now it says there in the pasuk, V'amra Isha, after he makes her swear, what does it say? V'amra Isha, Amen, Amen, right? V'amra Isha, Amen, Amen. That's in pasuk Chaf Beis. Here's what's going to happen to you. V'amra Isha, Amen, Amen. Rashi, in the last line in Rashi on this page, says, Mikan legilgul shvua min Torah. This is the concept of shvua. What does that mean? That min Torah, there's only certain shvuas that a person makes. For example, shvuas moda b'mixas. Shvuas kofar hakol, if you deny a whole thing, that's only shvua drabanan, right? There's other shvuas that people make a shvuas for this, that's only drabanan. Midaraisa, there's certainly shvuas. However, there's another concept that once you have to swear min Torah about something, they can roll over. In other words, they can include other shvuas with it that they themselves, those shvuas themselves, will not be required. You'll not be required to make such a shvua, but if you're required to make a shvua, because the Torah said you have to make a shvua in this case, like over here with this woman who has to swear that she hasn't committed adultery and that she agrees that if she commits adultery, this is going to kill her, because she makes a shvua about this case. What's this case? The case is this man, her husband, has told her, if you go into seclusion with this adulterer, with this Boel, we'll call him a Boel, he's not necessarily Boel, we don't know. If you go in seclusion, that's Kinui, and then she goes in seclusion, that's Stira. So in this case, there's a husband and there's a Boel, there's a Baal and a Boel. So she has to swear that she hasn't gone into seclusion with this guy, while she's married to him, while she's married to her husband. Let's say she had an affair with this guy when she was younger, when she was 17 or 18, before she was married. She wouldn't be prohibited to this guy now, right? She wouldn't be prohibited to her husband. So you can't make her swear. He says, what she's swearing to is that she didn't commit adultery after she had kini and stira from her husband regarding this Boel. But he can't say, well, maybe you had deal with him, years before we were married. That doesn't work. But what does work? What should she make a shvua? Now, Mahi Omer's Amen, Amen. Again, this Amen, Amen, that she would galgal other shvuas there. Amen, Allah, Allah. Number one, she's agreeing to the curse, right? He made her swear that you haven't committed adultery, and then if you commit adultery, you understand this curse is going to happen. Amen on that. Amen, Allah shvua. On that she swears that's obvious. That's the shvua itself. Amay Omer Amein Amein. Amein on the curse. Amein that she hasn't committed adultery. Amein mi'ish zeh. Amein mi'ish acher. Now that's not the steerer that we're talking about. She's saying now that she hasn't committed adultery with anybody else too, even though there was no Kenyan steerer on the other guy, right? She's saying there's no on this guy. We'll call him, whatever, Jim, right? He made a Kenyan steerer on Jim, and now he says, he says once she swears that she didn't commit adultery with Jim, she has to also swear that he says, well, what about Todd? Did you have beer with him? I mean, anybody else, not just Todd, but anybody else. That she didn't commit adultery at all, even though there was no Kenyan stira on all the other people in the world. Amen. Shalosh Shatisi. We'll see. We'll talk about even on a goy. In other words, even though we're having a discussion the other day with my daughter about that, this whole issue is so because the sota applies. We'll see even by a goy. Even if it says like it's tak if it's Todd or Jim or whoever, you can have a sota there too, even though the kid wouldn't necessarily be a mamzer, but that's the case. Okay, so amein shlosh tisi arusa unasua. I didn't astray. I didn't misbehave, even while we was an arusa. In other words, before you did kinyan steer, the kinyan steer was done now, right? It gives us now. Visual magalgo avznus shel eris and afapi shlohoya mokinui. Right? You can't. Let's say a guy gets married. And he said there was no Kenyan steer yet. They just got married. After a week, he's very suspicious of her. So, did you ever commit adultery after we were engaged? After you said right Mukadeshly a few months ago, we had the Arison. You commit adultery then? He can't make her swear to that. There was no Kenyan steer. Once there's Kenyan steer now on a particular person, he can make her swear on everything, not only on this guy, but that she didn't commit adultery before while she was betrothed to him, in which case she'd be forbidden to him also. But not if she would commit adultery before they were married. That's not adultery. That's just, whatever it is. That's just amen, right. Amen for everything. Amen for everything that applies, as we'll see. That's why it says amen, amen. Why say amen, amen? Why the double lashon? Gilgul shvua. Right? Shalosh tisi arusa unasua. Whether I was once I'm swearing on this guy, on this Kenyan stira, I swear that I didn't commit adultery when I was engaged before there was, or even after we're married, but on anybody else that would have prohibited. Don't forget, if a woman commits adultery, technically she's forbidden to her husband, period. She's a sota. If let's say we know that she committed adultery, she admits it, whatever it was. Whatever the case is. Today, if they admit it, they say, it was only she wants to get divorced and things like that. But if she committed adultery, she has to leave her husband, period. The sota is only if she denies it. He has reason for suspicion. There's Kenyan stira. And the water is to prove one way or another who's innocent and who's not. So that's the idea of it. Or shomer siyav muknusa. Let's say it was a different case. Let's say Reuven died. Reuven was her husband. He died with no children, left her to Shimon. Now Shimon marries her, and Shimon has Kenyan stira. Now he suspects her, and he says, "Well, you know what? I want you to swear also that you didn't commit adultery while you were waiting for me to marry you." In other words, from the time that Reuven died till Shimon performed Yibam, that's called Shemeres Yavam. I want you to swear to that too. That too also, whether she swears before or after. Obviously, after the marriage, that would prohibit. Shemeres Yavam before, would that prohibit her from marrying him if she committed adultery there? But she wasn't really married; she was only Shemeres Yavam. So our Mishnah says yes. We'll see that's only the sheet of Rabbi Kiva. It's not the halacha, but that's what Shemeres Yavam. Amen Shalom Macy. I agree also that I swear that I didn't commit adultery. Macy Yavobi. That's all part of the psukim. Okay, so the chiddush over here is that you can include anybody else. She commits just not only this guy that Kenyan steer on, but on anybody else that I could have done adultery with when the adultery would have prohibited me from her husband. That's the point. We'll see in a second. Rav Meir Omer. Yeah.
While she was waiting for
that. So
what's her status?
So according to what we just said, that would prohibit her from performing Yibam, but that's only according to Rabbi Kiva. We'll see that's not the halacha. The halacha is that she's not really married then. And if she commits adultery, she's over on Losia Eshes Hamesa Chutza Leish Zor, right? That she has to wait either for dinner there. That's a lav. So according to Rabbi Kiva, a lav is like kores. A lav is also makes a mamzer and would prohibit her from marrying.
Okay, so.
But halacha, that's not the case. We don't.
She needs a get?
No, she doesn't need a get. She doesn't need a get. She's still, if she was a Shomer Yavam and she committed adultery, meaning she lived with somebody other than the Yavam,
right.
According to the halacha, she was just over on a lot. You give her malchus if it's Eidim and Asra. If not, nothing. So she still needs chalitza or yibam, and the husband and the husband could give her, the yavam Shimon would either give her yibam or chalitza. Yibam or chalitza. Okay. Right. That's right. So, but he can marry her, the halacha. But our Mishnah says he can't because that's going like Rabbi Kiva. We'll see. Rav Meir Omer, Amen Shalom it may see. He says slightly different. Not only did I not commit adultery, Amen Shalom et tameh. It's an interesting thing. I swear that I won't become tameh. You know what that means? Because according to Rav Meir, if she commits adultery subsequently, right? That's what happens. He suspected her. And there's reason for suspicion, right? Kini and Stira. And she drinks. She hasn't yet committed adultery. But a day later, a couple of days later, a few months later, a year later, she commits adultery with that guy. Then the water will kill them. You might say, that's a delayed penalty, right? That's what we call, put your hand up, it's a delayed penalty. We had that before also. We had it back on Yadal and Beis. We're going to see it in tomorrow's daf. That if you hold that the mechika of the Megillah is after the carbon mincha. We're going to talk about the carbon mincha tomorrow. That you bring the carbon after she drinks. So until she brings the carbon, the water doesn't work. There's also a delayed reaction there too, right? Just like the husband dies when she drinks, doesn't make physical sense. It's all it's a spiritual punishment over here that has a physical effect, but it doesn't necessarily happen right away. We had before also that if she has a schus, that's told her, right? She did some good deeds, so she doesn't die right away, but she deteriorates starting almost immediately. But here, a case where she doesn't necessarily deteriorate right away, but the drinking isn't spontaneous; it doesn't happen immediately. She drinks, and then after you bring the carbon, then she dies. Here we're saying she drinks, and after she commits adultery later on, a week or two or a month later, she will die then. That's what Meir Shita is. Now, interesting, right? And everybody agrees for Meir and the Chachamim. He can't make a condition, meaning he can't make her swear, lo al kodem shitzaris, as I mentioned before. She says, do you ever have a relationship with any other man before we were married? No, that doesn't prohibit her, right? Below al achar shetisgaresh, after, let's say, he divorces her, nistrelech, let's say he gives her kinyan stira, and he divorces her. Then she commits adultery, or let's call it adultery. She has a deal with somebody while she's divorced. Listen carefully. While she's divorced, right? Vinit mess, and she committed adultery with him. She was steer with the guy and she mess. The achkach, and then he took her back. You can't swear about that too. Lo yamasnima. Why? Because if she had deal with that guy then when she was divorced, that doesn't prohibit her from this guy. What do you mean? If Reuben divorces his wife, and she marries Yankel, somebody else, right? Let's say Yankel is the guy, the boy, right? She marries, he divorces her. He says, I suspect you of kinyan steer. I'm divorcing you right now. Forget the whole thing. I don't need the water. I don't need nothing. Take your ksuba, get out of here. He divorces her. She goes and marries that guy. Yankel will call him, right? And then Yankel dies or divorces her. He can't take her back, right? You can't take her back. It's called machsigu shas mishnus. You can't do that. But if she didn't marry Yankel, she just had a relationship with him and 100 other shmendriks, right? 100 other people. The first husband could take her back. Of course, he's not a Kohen, right? Understand? But he could take her back. So in that case, if he says, listen, let's say he says, I want you to swear also that you didn't have Bia when you were 15 years old before we were married. Can't do that because that wouldn't prohibit her on him. It also wouldn't prohibit her on him if she had Bia with Yankel after they were divorced. She didn't marry him. She just had Bia with him because then the husband could take her back. There's no Isser over there. You understand? There's no Isser as long as he's not. He can't take her back if she married Yankel. But if she didn't marry Yankel, just had a relationship with him, then he could take her back. That's the technicality. That's the point. You understand? Right. Take a look at Rashi. Look at Rashi right before the Gemara. You see Rashi where before the Gimel Mem in the Gemara, Rashi points out there. In the mess, she's not prohibited to take him back. She got married to Yaakov. The Chiksiv lo yuchal bal rishon asher shilcha loshuv l'kachta acher kedushim in a suing ksiv. After she married him, asher lakcha, after he took her back, Kiddusiv. Oisali ish acher, she'll marry the other guy. Usneya ha ish acher, the other guy divorces her, whatever. The first guy can't take her back. But if he didn't marry her, she just.
If someone who gets divorced.
Yes.
You can have a deal with anybody else, and the husband doesn't have to take it back.
The husband could take her back. Could take her. Yes, that's technically that's correct. Right. Doesn't sound right, right? That's what the pasuk says. You're right. Doesn't sound right. Doesn't feel right, right? Doesn't feel right. After all, she didn't even marry the guy, right? If she married the guy, okay, that's a commitment, and then you can take her back. That's the halacha. Okay, that's the halacha. Okay. Amar Rav Hamnuna. So Rav Nuna says, based on the Mishnah, we just said, remember, we said, I told you it's not the halacha, but the Mishnah said, if she had bia while she was a Shomer Siyavam, that would also, he can make a swear that. Amar Rav Nuna, Shomer Siyavam, which is if she committed adultery, she can't marry the Yavam anymore. If she committed adultery while she was a Siyavam, I mean, how do I know? Midiktani Shomer Siyavam, but Knusa, whether she, remember, the Yavam, let's say Shimon, right? If the Reuben dies, no children, takes her Shimon. Shimon marries her, and then he does Kini and Stira on somebody, Todd or whoever. And then she says, well, did you commit adultery? I want you to swear also you didn't commit adultery before we were married, after Reuben died, before I married you. Knusa says what? You can't, he can make her swear. If that would prohibit her from marrying Shimon, that's why you can make it tonight, because it makes sense, because you can only make Kinu and Stira if it's about somebody, a potential Boel, who would prevent her from being married to her own husband. If that doesn't prohibit her, you can't make a condition. That by the time we learn Zak Klal, I think I skipped those words in the Mishnah. Zak Klal, I didn't say it in the Mishnah, we're saying it now. Zak Klal, Kol Shitval. This is the general rule. Anytime when she would have bia, and that wouldn't prohibit her to her husband. That was the case, Moshe, that we just said, that if she had bia with 100 different guys after he divorced her, the first husband could take her back. Those bias would not prevent her from marrying her first husband again. Therefore, you can't do Kini and Stira. You can't make her swear on those. Because that in the Mishnah, and she wouldn't be also them. You can't make a condition that. You can't make her swear for that too. So that's what we're saying now in the Gemara. But tonight we learned, so why would he make a condition about Shomer Siyavam? If a Shomer Siyavam, if while she was a Shomer Siyavam, she slept with somebody else, that would not prevent her from marrying the Yavam, he can't make her swear to that. He can only make her swear if that would prevent her from marrying him. And therefore, it must be, since you can make a shvua, it must be that if a Shomer Siyavam committed adultery, quote unquote adultery, she can't marry the Yavam. Amri Marav, they said in Eretz Yisrael, no, the Lach is not like that. Why? This is what we said in our Mishnah, how money goes like Rabbi Kiva. Remember, Rabbi Kiva says that even if a Kohen marries a Grusha, okay, the kid would be a Chol. According to Rabbi Kiva, that kid's a Mamzer. Because according to Rabbi Kiva, any lav, any type of that says you can't marry this person, even if it's only a lav, like a Kohen marrying a Grusha, Kohen Gadol to Almana, a Mamzer to Sinta Evzel, Mamzer for sure would make a Mamzer. Anything like that makes a Mamzer. And the Kedusha is not Chal. So that goes like a Bekiva. So since the pasuk is by Shomer Siyavam Lo Siyas, she's not allowed to marry somebody else. She has to wait for the Yavam either to make a Yiva more Chalitza. If she marries somebody else, she's over on the lav. Well, according to Bekiva, over on the lav makes a mamzer. Kedushin is not chal, and that would prohibit her from marrying the Yavam. But we don't hold that way. That goes like a Bekiva. Don't make Kedushin of some chayv lavan. It makes her like an erva, like a chorus. According to Rabbi Kiva. Right? Or no, not according to Akiva. I take it back. According to everybody. Let's say this is their second marriage, right? He divorced her and he took her back. He wasn't the Kohen, he took her back. Can he make a tonight on his first marriage? In other words, can he say now, on the or Shimon marries her now after Reuben died with no children and Shimon, the brother, married her. And he said, okay, listen, I made Kini and Stira now. Remember, okay, you're swearing that you didn't commit adultery, after we were married, and you didn't commit adultery with not only with this guy but with other guys too. I also want you to swear you didn't commit adultery while you were married to my brother. Would that work? Tashma ze'akval. Here's the rule: kol shetivav lo te'asur. If the bia would not prohibit her from marrying this guy. Loya masnima. asira. But if it would prohibit her from marrying her, hachinami demasa, he could make it a shmamina. It would work. Why? What do we say in the first Mishnah in the Masechet? We said, what happens if he did kini and stira, and he's going through the process, and the husband dies. There were no children. The husband died before she got a chance to drink and bring the carbon. The husband died. What about the Shimon, which she married? No, the Mishnah said at the end of the Mishnah, you don't make even. She's not allowed to marry in that case. So in this case too, if when Shimon's married to her, Shimon says, "Did you commit adultery while you were married to my brother Reuben?" If she committed adultery while she was married to her brother Reuben, Shimon can't marry her. So then he could include that in the shvuas. And the same thing with the first marriage. If she would, if let's say he says, I want you to also swear you didn't commit adultery while we were married the first time. We got married, we had a fight, we didn't go to counseling, we got divorced, right? We got divorced, and then they went to counseling and he took her back. And now he says, I want you to swear also that you didn't commit adultery while we were married the first time. And there was no kin and steer, it's kin and steer now. But while you're swearing about this kin and steer, I want you to swear on the first marriage too. Yes, he could make her swear too, because if she did admit that she committed adultery, then she's still a sota. If she's a sota without kin and steer, if she did commit adultery, then he can't take her back. Whenever a man's wife commits adultery, he can never take her back.
But I thought that you need
We're talking about the Gilgal Shvur. He needs Gilgal Shvur. He needs the Kinyan Stira now on this marriage, the second marriage. But what he says, while you're swearing about this, I want you to also swear that you didn't commit adultery before we were married in the first marriage, when you married the first time, or you didn't commit adultery when you were married to my brother, or whatever. Anything that would prohibit her from staying with him. That's the point.
Why?
This is the Gilgal Shvur.
Where the brother dies.
Yeah.
And he's making there is second the Yibum, etc. And the guy who's alive is making her swear. Making her swear
because he did Kinyan Steer on her now, and he's making this
while she was married
to the brother, right? Why? Because if she did, what would happen? If she did, then we just said the Mishnah on Beis and Aleph. Mishnah says there you can't make Yibum. In other words, if she committed adultery, which would to the first brother, right, to Reuben while he was alive. That would right. If she committed adultery, whatever it was, without Kinyan Steer, there was no Reuben didn't give Kinyan Steer, but she's swearing it. But if she would have committed adultery, she would be usher to Reuben. Then she's also usher to Shimon. Shimon would not perform even in that case. So therefore, Shimon can now include that in the Gilgal Shvur, even though Reuben didn't do Kinyan Steer.
What's her status then if she had done? If she was
you have to give chalitza. That's what the Mishnah said. He has to give her chalitza. That's the case, even though we said kol ola yibum ola chalitza, kol shein ola yibum ola chalitza.
First adultery only would work on the second one. In other words,
right? If she's dead, right?
Yeah. But the shvur, but the shvur work. That's right. The shvur works on both. Right. The shvur would be on both. Correct.
Don't ask, don't tell. If he
why does he have to do that?
Right.
He doesn't
have to.
He already did Kibum.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
all he needs is.
What difference does it make if she?
He's done Kinyan Steer now. After he did. Yeah. Well, after the fact, he wants to know now. Look at the situation. He is a tzaddik. He doesn't want to live with a tramp. So he made Kinyan Steer on his current wife. And he suspects her, right? That's going on. He says, okay, I suspect you now. By the way, I also want you to swear you didn't commit adultery while you were married to my late brother. That's what he's saying. That's what he thinks. He means it l'shem shemayim.
But if he already did Yibum on her.
He already did Yibum on her. No, because he doesn't want to train. Because he's still he did Yibum, but he suspects her now for the current Kinyan Steer.
She drinks the current one.
This is before she drinks.
No, if she committed adultery with the brother,
right?
But not with the guy.
That's what Michael asked. That's what Michael said. That's what Michael asked. So it could be that the water won't check her, but maybe it will. Maybe it might work because the shvur, he has to throw her out for sure. But that's based on her shvur. Well, she swears that she didn't commit adultery under Reuben. She swears that she did not. Listen, she swears that she did not. Period. Okay, she did not. Now she drinks on the current one. If she's clean, she's clean. She swore she didn't commit adultery. You know what I'm saying? All those, she swore she didn't commit adultery. If there's witnesses that she committed adultery now, Adam show up that she committed adultery while she was married to Reuben, she'd be
But
prohibited
if
marriage.
she says now, I did with your brother, but not with you,
Yeah,
right? Then the whole story.
the whole thing, so you stop right
Everything's
there.
over.
Divorce and that's it. Give her chalitza, that's it. Give her chalitza and that's it.
But, no. If she-
Chalitza, still
No,
needs
no,
chalitza.
If he was miyabim already, has to.
No,
Yeah.
no, he said before, but if he miyabim already, you have to give her a get, right? Get, right. All right. Rav Meir Omer, Amen Shalom et Meisi. Rav Meir says in the future also, Tanya, don't think for a moment that when Rav Meir said, it's an interesting thing. Don't think for a moment that Rav Meir said that you swear also that she's not going to commit. She says, I'm not going to commit adultery in the future that this water should not kill me in the future if I commit adultery afterwards. Don't think that it's going to kill her now based on a future event. He didn't mean that. He says, Lok Shamar Rabbi Kiva, Amin Shalonetma, I swear I'm not going to be Tameh, Jim did mine both, of course it can't work on the future. When she becomes Tameh later on, a year later, she committed adultery with the guy. Ma'im Aaron, the water stirs it up again, comes back into her throat somehow miraculously. And checks her. That's what Meir means. Boy, Ravashi Maushi, it's not she asked on him al Nasuan Achronim. Right? What about if he says, I want, according to Rav Meir, this is the question, according to Rav Meir holds that it works on the future. And by the way, the Rambam Paskins like Rav Meir over here. Interesting. Rav Meir was always the one who holds that you could that you can't make a deal, right? That ain't on masal davar shalom olam. You can't make a deal on something that's not here right now. This didn't happen yet. Yet Rav Meir says she swears that I'm not going to be tummy in the future. I swear that I'm not going to have deal with this alleged adulterer in the future. Right? Rav Meir says that works, and Rambam Paskins like that. So boy, Ravashi Maushi asked on him, what events can he swear? Can he make her swear that if I divorce you and we get remarried, that it should work on that too? Can I do that also? On the Sunnah Achronim. Hashtami alo asira. She's not also been based. I don't understand lashon. Hashtami alo asira. She's not also been based on that, because it hasn't happened yet. She's not married to him again. She's married now to him now. Can he make a condition if we get divorced and I marry you later on again? And can this whole shvua business and the whole work for that too? It's not here. Oh, Dilma, Zim the Magarsha, maybe you will divorce her. It's very possible that a person could get upset with his wife, divorce her, and take her back. So maybe it should work there too. He makes us like Toshma. Mishnah said everybody agrees that he can't make a condition and say, swear that you didn't have beer before you were ever married. That doesn't work because that wouldn't prohibit her from marrying this guy. Even even from marrying a Kohen. Even from marrying a Kohen. A Kohen can marry a woman who has had beer. We don't hold like Rabbi Lezer holds that putting a ball plea makes her a zona. She's not a zona. If that would be the case, 99% of the women of the world would be zonos, right? They all had beer now before they have, and that would be the case, right? That's not a zona. But in any case, you can't take that condition. And also, you can't make a condition, as we said before, if he divorces her and to this guy Todd, whatever, vinitmus, and it should be above that, vinitmus, and she became tamei to him, and he took her back because that wouldn't prohibit, as we said, if he divorced her and she didn't marry somebody else, she just had beer with him, it wouldn't prohibit her. Lo yamasna, but let's say he says he took her back and then she would be tamei. It's only, he says, what if you can't make a tanai on something that if she had the beer, it wouldn't prohibit her. For example, if he divorced her, she had beer with somebody else. Without getting married to the guy, and then he took it back, that wouldn't prohibit it. So he can't make a condition there. But if he says, I'm making a condition that if I divorce you and take you back, it's mashma, and then you became tamei, that he could make it a condition. So you see that would work. That would work. In other words, if he says, I now, according to a mayor who says you can make a condition for the future, tamei, it could even work, not even in the future while we're during this marriage. Even during a second marriage, if I divorce you and take you back, it would work there too. Tana Rabbana. Zos Taurus Knos. The end of the parsha says Zos Taurus. These are the rules of the Knos. Taurus is a general Lashon, includes more. Can he make her drink twice? He suspects her once. He takes her through the whole process. She drinks. She's clean. Obviously, if she died, it wouldn't happen again. And then same thing happened again. He always suspects her of this guy Jim, whatever. He always suspects her. Can you drink a second time? So, right, not a good man. So stars like That's what the Talmud comment says, that she could drink a second time. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Zos, no, it says Zos is an exclusion. She does bring a second time. Okay, Rav Yehuda. Now listen, even though Rav Yehuda says she doesn't drink a second time, Rav Yehuda Maisa was a story. Lefanenu Nechunya ben Akana gave us a chofer sichin. He was called. He used to dig the wells for the Ola Regolim. He was a big tzaddik, so they should have water. This Nechunya chofer sichin gave testimony. Sheisha shosa b'shona. He gave testimony. I don't know if he's talking about a case or he gave testimony that he heard edus that a woman could drink a second time. We accept it as edus. Sounds like it happened. B'shnei anoshim, right? We applied it by two men, right? In other words, by two different husbands. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda just said Zos is an exclusion. She doesn't drink a second time. And then Rabbi Yehuda says, Amaisa, that Nechunya gave testimony that a woman drinks a second time, but that's if it was two different husbands. In other words, she was a known slut. And her first marriage, she had Kinyan Stira there. And the second husband who took her also did Kinyan Stira. There you could drink a second time. But if it was with the same husband, can't drink a second time.
How many times could she die?
Listen, no, she didn't die, obviously. Obviously, she didn't die. The Chum say, a woman does not drink a second time. Whether it's one man or two men, she doesn't drink a second time. Now, we have three opinions over here. We have the Tanakam who said she could drink again and again. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, she can only drink again if it's two different husbands, right? It would happen twice with two different guys. The Chum saying she never drinks again. So the Gemara Sa'ab is kasha, but Tanakama now accepts Zos. What does the Tanakama do with Zos? After all, he says, yeah, she can drink all I want. What about Zos? Zos is an inclusion. And the Rabbanah Basroi, the Chachamim, the last Shita, who says that a woman never drinks again. Nami Hotziv's Torah says he does include Mashma. You could drink more than one. So these three Shitas are hard to understand. Amar Rava. So Rava sets the table for us. One husband cannot make the same wife, give her kinestira for the same alleged adulterer, for Jim, right? That's what Zos excludes, according to everybody, right? The Siv Zos says Zos, this no other. So one husband and the same husband, the same adulterer, don't drink twice. If it was two different husbands with two different alleged adulterers, then she could drink a second time. Not only is it a different husband, it's a different alleged adulterer. The Siv Torah that includes everything. Keep pligi. The machlokas is beish echad ushnei bolin, whether you had one husband with two different alleged adulterers, or b'shnei nashim, or two different husbands and the same adulterer. Tanakama Savar, Torah l'rabuya kule. Torah includes the most. Zos excludes the one case. The Torah is to say all cases she could drink again and again. Zos is an exclusion, so we'll exclude the minimum. What's the minimum? That's likely. You know, he's a suspicious. If she drank once and she was okay, and this guy did kinyan steer again, obviously this husband is a suspicious kind of a character. So we'll exclude that case that she can't drink again with the same husband, the same bowl. We're not going to do it again. Rabbanah Basroi, who say she never drinks again, say sorry, Zos lemute kuli. Zos exclude almost all cases she shouldn't drink again. But yes, if Torah, which includes one, what's the most likely case that we should include? Torah l'rabuya shnei nashim shnei bol. In other words, we have an exclusion and an inclusion. So, like Rashi explains, therefore, obviously, the Torah left it up to Chachamim to explain, according to their Chachma, what should we include, what should we exclude. So he says, look, Zos excludes almost all cases. We'll include one case. What's the most likely case to include that she could drink a second time? If it was two different husbands and two different boilins. So where it's not a suspected, the husband's not a suspicious character, and it's not the same boil, that's the case where she drinks twice. Rabbi Yehuda says, look, Zos lemute tarti, Zos excludes two cases, and he's like in the middle opinion. And Torah l'rabos tarti, and Torah includes two different cases. Zos lemute tarti, ish echad uboel echad. Right, that's the most likely case to exclude one husband with one boel, or ish echad shnei boel, or one person with two different boel because he's a suspicious kind of guy. So we'll exclude him and say no, she doesn't drink. One husband cannot make her drink twice, according to Rabbi Yehuda, and certainly according to the last shita, the Chacham. Torah's l'rabuya, Torah includes tarti two cases. What are the more likely cases to include? Two husbands, shnei nashim uboel, two husbands with one alleged adulterer, or shnei nashim shnei bolin. That's the most likely one to include. So we have three different opinions about her drinking a second time. Maybe we'll start the new parak tomorrow. Have a good day. Shavua tov l'kulam.